Among all the great history of the St. Louis Cardinals organization at the catcher position, Ivan Herrera did something on Wednesday afternoon that had never been done in the history of the franchise. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It's Wednesday evening, April 2nd, 2025. Cardinals have wrapped up their series against the Los Angeles Angels, and they did it in style, thanks in part to the contributions of Ivan Herrera, who for the first time in Cardinals history became a catcher to have a 3-home-run game. With all the great catchers that you can rattle off from Cardinals history, from Ted Simmons to Tim McCarver to Yadier Molina and so on, never been done before today. Ivan Herrera, yeah, that dude can hit. I think we knew this to be true, but maybe the extent to which he is an absolute weapon for the St. Louis Cardinals at the plate was maybe finally fully unveiled today. If you thought before that he was a pretty good hitter, you were right. But now you see the full power that he can display, and it was true light tower power for Ivan Herrera. He didn't get cheated on any of these swings. I think the distance was like 390 or above on all of them, and it continued to increase with each home run. The second one banged off the facade there in front of Big Mac Land. I think 419, give or take, was the distance estimated for that one. I'll look it up. I'll find the StatCast because it's worth getting right and worth repeating. He was tremendous today. And then the third home run, which was kind of the cherry on top of the come-from-behind effort for the St. Louis Cardinals today, does land in Big Mac Land. He got all of it. Let's see, top distances of the game. You had 425 from Ivan Herrera. That was the Big Mac homer. 414 from Ivan Herrera. That was the bang off the facade homer. And then Mike Trout had one. Logan O'Hoppe had one at 404 that was worth 4 points for the road team. We'll talk about the grand slam off of Sonny Gray and whether it should have still been Sonny Gray in that position pitching. And then Ivan Herrera, the fifth longest distance of a batted ball in this game, 395. 3 of the 5 belonged to Ivan Herrera. A 3-home run game, again, for the first time in franchise history that we have seen a catcher do that. And the Cardinals needed, the majority of them. At the end of the day, I guess they didn't really need any of them because if you take away the 6 runs, Cardinals still win 6-5, right? They win this one 12-5. No, this was a big-time performance from a lot of guys offensively, but Herrera in particular, 3 for 4 with the 3 home runs, also reached base a 4th time via walk and ended the game with 6 runs driven in on those homers. Nolan Arenado had a nice day as well, going 2 for 3, also reached base a couple of times via walk, had a couple of runs driven in. Don't look now, but Arenado's OPSing 1109 with a 391 batting average on the season. You knew he'd bounce back, but man, to this extent, he's off to a really solid start. And I think you're seeing it from Arenado in the at-bats he's taking, in the way he's running the bases, and so on and so forth. It's just become a pretty complete effort at this point from Arenado, which is great to see. Another 2-hit game for Newt Barr, ho-hum. He's up to a 1,200 OPS. And you had a couple of the guys that had struggled to begin the season finally breaking out of it. Wilson Contreras and Mason Winn both coming up with their first respective hits of the season. It comes in a key spot for both of the guys as they broke out of it in the inning that followed the grand slam by Logan O'Hoppe. So let's take you back as we walk through this game, covering the Cardinals all season long on b-schaeff Daily. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Do me a favor. You don't have to do any of the things that include costing you money, like joining the YouTube membership. You can if you want to. The link is down in the video description if you'd like to support the channel in that way. And you can join the free Discord as well. It's another free thing you can do to support the channel and to support the community that we're building over with b-schaeff Daily. But subscribe is the easiest thing you can do. Click that button, give this video a like if you enjoy Cardinals content all summer long. But we'll take you back into the start by Sonny Gray on Wednesday afternoon, which was really everything the Cardinals could have hoped for up until the 7th inning, which you're asking Sonny Gray to get into the 7th inning. You know that he's oftentimes a guy that is max efforting 5 or 6 innings, but when he's really efficient, you can get more out of him. And that's what Oliver Marmol tried to do today. And I'm so glad that we don't have to come on this podcast and debate whether or not it was the right move, wrong move, to stick with Sonny Gray for that O'Hoppe at bat. We can still discuss it and talk about it, but it is fortunately not the thing that ended up determining the outcome of this game, because if it had, it probably comes with the Cardinals on the downside, and we're talking about sweeps not being that hard, but the Cardinals being on the wrong end of one. Sonny Gray was really sharp for 6 innings. He gives up a home run to Mike Trout in the first inning. I think that one was kind of predictable, honestly. It felt like Trout had to get one in this series, and he has pretty good numbers lifetime off of Sonny Gray. So I was putting my son down for a nap at home on Wednesday afternoon, and I saw, that the game had started. I was kind of curious to see if we'd get a rain delay or if we'd get the Cardinals trying to do some maneuvering because of the potential weather in the area. But they started it on time, and it's a good thing that they did because, well, the Cardinals won, but also they were able to get the game in without really any issues before some of the more severe weather entered the area, and hopefully everybody is staying safe out there. But I had looked and said, oh, good, couple of outs in the first inning already. Looks like they're getting the game underway. I'll catch up after I put my son down for a nap. And I come back, it's 1-0. I'm thinking it had to be Trout in the first inning. I knew what the numbers were coming in. He had like 4 or 5 career homers off of Gray, and he got one there. But otherwise, Sonny Gray was cruising through the first 6 innings of this game, and he put up a hefty strikeout total, ends the game with 9 Ks. But, of course, you ask a little bit more out of him. And the reason behind that is pretty simple. The bullpen, as we know, if you listen to last night's show, is depleted at this point. And you used a lot of guys on back-to-backs. You used Ryan Helsley, Ryan Fernandez, Chris Roycroft, all of those key righties in your pen had been used. They were not going to be available today. They'll all get the rest on Thursday's off day and presumably all be ready to go. Back to being fightin' fit, as they'd say in the old Pokemon games, and should be good to go against the Red Sox for their home opener up in Boston on Friday afternoon, which is kind of a fun vibe. I think it's a 1:15 start, something in that neighborhood at Fenway Park. Would be a fun trip to take, but I will not be making that road trip this early in the season. Nevertheless, you had some limitations on who was going to be available for the Cardinals on Wednesday. Phil Maton, they had stayed away from him for a couple of days by design. You knew he was going to be available to come in on Wednesday. Beyond that, John King we haven't seen much from. Maybe you get an inning out of Steven Matz if you had to, because he threw 4 innings and then gets a couple of days off, and maybe a bullpen day timing for a starter's routine, which presumably he's still trying to maintain to some effect. Maybe he gets you an inning. Jojo Romero was able to come in. Kyle Leahy ends up coming in to pitch in the 8th inning today, despite the fact that he threw 2 yesterday. So, I'm rattling off these names. There weren't a ton of your mainstays, especially from the right side, which this is a right-handed heavy Angels lineup, that were going to be available for Ollie Marmol today. So, with that in mind, you get Sonny looking sharp through 6. They tried to get him through 7. The spot where I would have probably considered making a move, just so everybody knows that I can disagree with a manager's decision, but I think as a society we should try to stay away from, he made a decision that I disagree with, or worse yet, he made a decision that I waited to see how it panned out, and then when Logan O'Hoppe hit the grand slam, even if I didn't think it was a stinky decision before that, now I sure do, and I'm going to say the manager's an idiot, or some of the other things that I had to start muting and blocking people on Twitter, because I just don't, the personal attacks are too much for me. But I actually don't agree with that they, stuck with Sonny Gray, despite the fact that I understand why they did it. It's because of the availability of who's behind him and with how good he looked. Man, you absolutely have him start that 7th inning. I don't think anybody would say otherwise to that. He was very efficient, I think in the 70s on pitch count. He was fine to go. But as you get into that inning, it started to devolve very slowly and then quickly, all of a sudden, against Sonny Gray. By that I mean he was still looking solid. Right? There weren't a ton of signs that things were breaking down necessarily. Okay, you let a base runner on. Okay, Wilson Contreras can't quite glove what maybe could have been a double play ball, but you get another guy on base because of that. Okay, you're 0-2 on the next batter, so you're still pumping strikes, but then the lefty hits him in the back foot, and in an 0-2 count allows the guy to get on base, even though he had him dead to rights in an 0-2 count, right? For me, that was the moment where I go, all right, don't let this thing get away from you here. Sonny has more than done his job. Pass the baton. Now, I don't know who was up. I was obviously, not covering this game this afternoon. If I was putting my son down for a nap, you already knew that part. But my point with that is I don't know for sure what was said post-game about the decision and whether there was a lot of consideration for Oliver Marmol to take Gray out in that spot before O'Hoppe's at bat when he went out to visit the mound. But the reason I said it developed slowly is you can kind of trick yourself into saying, well, it's not so bad. It's just one base runner. Okay, it was a ground ball that really could have been a double play, but ends up being another base runner. The point at which you maybe have to kind of shake yourself awake and go, all right, he's kind of laboring in this inning, even if he hasn't been getting hit hard. do we want to be a little bit preventative here? Do we want to get out in front of something before it turns gnarly on us? That probably was the point. And even then, I can understand not doing it for a host of reasons, because you had the depleted bullpen that you're dealing with. You're trying to map out, okay, if we can't get any outs of him here in the 7th inning, is like Maton going to be the guy? Is he ready? Do we want to bring Maton in with multiple guys on base? It's not an ideal situation. It develops slowly and then quickly. It kind of adds up in a hurry, and you have to kind of, on the fly, take a moment, get out there to the mound, talk to him. Are you good to go? Okay, yes, he says he is, which, again, another aspect of this, if Sonny Gray wasn't good to go, he would tell you. I mean, he has a history where he would just say, I'll walk off the mound. I'll be done. Like, it's happened before. So for him to stay in the game tells me that everybody was on the same page about it. Hitting the guy in the back foot with the slider or whatever, the sweep or whatever ended up being that nicked the lefty batter right before Ohapi in an 0-2 count, that was where I was like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good. So personally, yeah, I would have made the move. But again, I think there are going to be these micro decisions throughout a season where it could be 50-50, it could be 60-40, it could be 55-45, and the result doesn't always indicate the quality of the decision. In this case, I was going, I don't know, don't have a great feeling. Well, that was proven to be the case as the home run happens, and with 3 guys on base, they call that a grand slam. So the Cardinals had this nice 3-1 lead. Herrera had been doing his thing and getting you into that position to have the lead, and then it's all gone. 5-3, Angels have the lead, and suddenly you're feeling as though this is going to result in a sweep. I got a tweet from somebody that said, hey, Brenden, do you have the tweet ready? And, of course, the tweet referring to anytime there's a sweep that the Cardinals are involved in, whether on the upside or the downside, I have to send the famous mantra negating the idea that sweeps are particularly difficult. I say sweeps aren't that hard, just play the blank. And on Sunday, it was just play the Twins, and I even put together a fun little graphic for it. Was not going to do the graphic if the Cardinals had lost because I was not in the mood. I just didn't. With the way that this series had gone, the Cardinals had lost this game 5-3, and if they'd kind of done the dead fish routine after the Ohapi Grand Slam, that people would have been in shambles. People would have not been feeling very light and airy about the state of the St. Louis Cardinals. We could be honest about that. So I wasn't excited about the prospects of having to send the tweet, if I'm being totally honest. But as it is my solemn duty, I was going to do it. I just wasn't going to make a special graphic for it. Didn't have enough time this afternoon. Anyway, Cardinals said it's fine if you don't have time. We're going to bounce back almost immediately, and that's where Mason Winn and Wilson Contreras come in. With that bottom of the 7th inning, got the ball rolling, first with Mason Winn's first hit of the season, and then with Wilson Contreras. And you know what? Put the ball in play, good things, etc., etc. Put the ball in play, good things can happen. And they did, and the Angels started to kick the ball all around the diamond, which helped the Cardinals to get that game tied. Bottom of the 7th inning, started off with Mason Winn's single. Nootbaar gets a base knock, and Contreras is credited with a double, and he ends up at third base because of the throwing error by Nicky Lopez. So from there, 5-5. And this was a complaint. I guess you can call it a complaint. It was a grievance I was airing about the nature of the way the Cardinals' first handful of games had gone. And then it was continued in the 7th inning where they didn't get Wilson Contreras home. There was nobody out in the inning. They led off the inning with Winn, Nootbaar, Contreras all getting base hits, and Wilson's on third base with nobody out. They then get the first out of the inning before intentionally walking Nolan Arenado. Herrera strikes out, Donovan flies out. So you had first and third with one out. You had a runner on third, nobody out. Couldn't get the go-ahead run home. And that's when I tweeted out and said the Cardinals have been able to, like, the lineup deserves credit for not just what happened Wednesday. And again, try to take yourself into the mind frame of the game's tied 5-5 when I'm sending this out. We didn't yet know that they were going to score a touchdown in the bottom of the 8th, make it 12-5. But I said the lineup deserves a lot of credit for the way that they've battled so far this season. But they have kind of pushed the rock, the big boulder, up to the top of the hill, and they haven't been able to really shove it over to the other side of the hill. Somebody's got to have a clutch swing in this game to make sure that happens here. Because after you tie that game 5-5, the emotional swing of Sonny Gray's having a great outing, and suddenly his ERA is 6 because he gives up a grand slam. Nobody's feeling good about that. And then for the two guys that had struggled so much, I say all year, but it's been 5 games before today. But Winn and Contreras were 0 for the season. That's a fact. And so for those guys to be so integral to the immediate answer to the grand slam and tying things up was huge. But then the Cardinals kind of squandered the rest of that momentum. And you're thinking, man, not being able to get Wilson home from third when there was nobody out at that point and get you the lead that you – I know that the bullpen is iffy today, the number of guys and maybe the quality of them that you're going to be able to bring into this game with a one-run lead. It's going to be a little bit dicey. But, if they get this lead, I don't think they're going to give it back. Just kind of felt like they needed to push that boulder over the hill. And finally, in the 8th inning, they were able to do it. You give a lot of credit to Kyle Leahy because, once again, he's just kind of Johnny on the spot, being able to help the Cardinals out, give them a couple of key outs there in the 8th inning when, my gosh, the guy had 2 clean yesterday. You kind of figured he was going to end up maybe getting the day off today, but they said, nope, you got to throw the 8th, man. We got a tie game, and we need to cover this thing. He does give up a walk, which was fine because it was the third batter that he had faced, and it was allowing them to bring in JoJo Romero, the lefty, for a better matchup. And JoJo ends up getting his man and then pitching a clean 9th inning for the Cardinals, which, again, good on him to get the 4 outs because you just didn't want to have to burn anybody more in the bullpen. I will keep an eye on the John King situation. We haven't seen him lately, and it just seemed like I guess you figured off day Thursday, just let JoJo finish that thing out rather than get somebody else hot. And then really, if John King would have flamed out, even with a 7-run lead, you wouldn't have really known who to turn to next. So JoJo only threw to 1 batter. You get Thursday off. Let him pitch the 9th. No issue with that. So keep an eye. We'll just see if John King, if anything materializes, if he's good to go, or if Oliver Marmol just didn't find the spots for him in this series. But those bullpen contributions end up being pretty clutch when you know that you don't have many of those guys down there available on a given day, and you're just trying to eke your way to the off day on Thursday without having to say, yeah, we got there, but we got swept in the process. Credit to Leahy for taking the ball, getting him a couple of outs, and JoJo to come in and clean things up from there and keep that game tied as the Cardinals go to work in the bottom of the 8th inning, where you got a little bit of everything. If you're an old school Cardinals fan, you got to see what you wanted. You got to see what you like. With the bunting that was on display, the Cardinals made it happen. Victor Scott II, Mason Winn. It was like me playing MLB The Show in 2020, which for people who are wondering, I haven't bought the game this year. I've been so unbelievably busy with podcasts and Sports Hub STL, both podcasting and videos and writing and everything going on. My radio show for KTGR. I am jealous. It's like the SpongeBob meme where him and Patrick are outside running around celebrating, having a good time. It's Squidward's inside his house just looking out the window at everybody having fun. That's me when it comes to MLB The Show right now. All the memes I see and all the people posting about their Diamond Dynasty teams. I haven't bought the game because it's probably like $60, first of all. And if I'm going to spend $60 on something, I'm going to make sure I get good use out of it. And right now at this point in the season, I just do not have the time. But anyway, my point with this was, in MLB The Show 2020, I wasn't very good at the game. I played it a heck of a lot because there was no baseball season going on. So I had nothing better to do. So I got decent enough at the game. I was pretty good at pitching. Hitting, though, not as much. So I'd be locked into these 1-to-1 games late. We'd be in extra innings or whatever. I'd bunt if I had a fast guy who could bunt. No shame in that. They call it the bunt cheese on MLB The Show. And I would do it. No shame in that. At least not for me. I wasn't good enough to have shame. But in that 8th inning, Jordan Walker gets it going with a base hit. His only hit of the day, but he did reach base as well via walk. So he was on base a couple of times. And by the way, he's got an OPS above 1,000 too. It's 1,056 for Jordan Walker with a 389 average. There was a point in the spring where I said, hey, look at Herrera's OPS. It's ridiculous. Hey, look at this guy. He's doing pretty well. I wonder if the Cardinals maybe just add all this up and figure out a way to have a decent lineup. As of the moment, Nootbaar's OPSing 1,200. Lukin is at 1,127. Arenado's at 1,109. Herrera's at 1,729. Walker's at 1,056. Victor Scott's at 907. Victor was 1 for 3 and also reached on a walk today. Mason Winn, well, he's down there. His OPS looks more like a batting average at this point, 291. But he ended up with 2 hits in the game because he got the bunt hit right behind Victor Scott getting the bunt hit in that 8th inning. Walker gets on. You've got those 2 guys at the bottom of the order, and get ready for some friggin' havoc. I love that the Cardinals are able to do this, and I know the old school baseball fans love to see it as well. They end up advancing both of those guys. And Victor Scott can deaden a bunt, man. And it doesn't have to get that far away from home plate. to be able to get him on base. Like, the catcher's got to pop out from his stance. The pitcher's not an option with the way that Victor deadens it. He's not going to be able to get to the ball. And so unless they're charging from third or something, Victor can get these bunt hits. And he got it in the eighth inning. And so you just say, all right, keep the line moving. Mason do it. Because the same thing applies. We're just trying to get one run home and take this lead. That's all the Cardinals are trying to do. So Mason then gets a bunt hit. Same difference, is able to get on base. That's what speed do. Speed kills. The Angels are tired of seeing Ian Anderson have to worry about these bunts, and so they bring in a reliever to replace him. And this one I thought was kind of interesting, actually. As I am to understand it, Ron Washington stated that the Angels didn't have a ton of options in their own bullpen. I don't know if he said they only had two. I didn't hear the quote, but basically they were depleted just in the same way that the Cardinals were because of the extra inning games. Brock Burke, lefty reliever, takes on Lars Nootbaar, which sure, you get the left on left, but Wilson Contreras is coming up next. I mean, you'd think, and it's interesting that we've already gotten 6 games into the season, and with Wilson struggling the way that he has, the decision by the opposing managers, it's fine to let a lefty face Contreras because he's not the most important part of the upcoming sequence. We've got Lars Nootbaar's a lefty, Burleson is a lefty, so we're going to be able to get 2 lefts on lefts, and we're just going to get the catcher, or the former catcher, Wilson Contreras, out because, he hasn't been able to get the job done anyway. So what's the matter? We're just going to be able to figure this out right here, left on right, and that'll be the situation. They do get the fly out from Lars Nootbaar, not deep enough to score the run from third. You kind of have visions of what happened on Tuesday night with Brendan Donovan not tagging up or tagging up and not scoring on a fly ball by Walker. And then you get a break. The guy decided, Brock Burke, don't really want to pitch to Wilson Contreras. I don't want to throw him a strike. Walks him. Cardinals take the lead. Alec Burleson walks him. Cardinals take the lead. What's crazy to me, and look, at this point it's 7-5. You're already kind of in a tough spot. Brock Burke gets to face Arenado. I have never seen a scenario that I can remember that Arenado is facing a lefty, and it ends very well for that lefty. Base hit by Arenado, breaks things open, 9-5, 2 more runs score, and then dunking on their heads is Ivan Herrera for the third time on the day, hitting that home run and making Cardinals history in the process. Yes, that was fun. The Cardinals score a touchdown in the bottom of the 8th to have some fun, to finally shove that boulder down the hill with like some Dragon Ball Z powers. It was ridiculous. You've been pushing that boulder up the hill for 3 straight games in this series, finally getting over the hump and doing it with a touchdown. And guess what? There are no runs to be saved for tomorrow because the Cardinals don't play on Thursday. So yes, get your money's worth, Cardinals offense. They did, and I feel like that is the exact way to make sure you're getting a happy flight out of the situation before you head to Boston. 4-2 record for the Cardinals. They avoid the sweep. They show you the resilience of this lineup. There's a lot to like about this team through the first week of the season, and we have completed a week. I know that they're going to be off on Thursday, but they played from Thursday to Wednesday with 1 off day last Friday. The week has been completed. The 6 games ended up being pretty favorable for the Cardinals. When you go 4-2, if you do that every single week, you're going to win a lot of ball games. Like more than 100 of them, if you're able to do that every single week. You win 66% of your games, you're doing all right. So, as much as I would agree with the sentiment where Cardinals fans have commented to me, the Cardinals could be undefeated right now. They could be 6-0. They absolutely could. The margin by which they lost those 2 games to kick off the Angels series was slim in both cases. And whatever the reasons behind the losses, look, guys, they're going to take losses throughout the year. But the resilience you're seeing offensively and the consistency of the approach, you might have a few innings at a time. You might have a trip through the batting order that you don't see the consistent grinding to where you're able to do enough to scratch off a run in that little segment of a baseball game. But it doesn't tend to last long. It seems like if guys have a rough trip through, by the next turn through the order, more times than not right now, they're making the adjustments and putting themselves in position to succeed. Doesn't mean they're always going to be constantly churning out runs, but you can tell the difference in some of the at-bats I think that this team is taking compared to years past. And is it as simple as, Turner Ward didn't know what he was doing, and he's not only the scapegoat, but the rightful blame that we place on this Cardinals offense not being very good? I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but also I think it's very fair to say at this point, like, what value was he adding? If he was there to support some of your best hitters and the veterans that liked him, like Goldschmidt and Arenado, and those guys were among your biggest underachievers, what are we doing, right? It's okay to make a change. And it got to the point where it It just wasn't even a conversation. They needed to make a move. Can Brant Brown end up being the answer? Right? I mean, that is, through a week, probably if you're talking about stock up, stock down, the arrow was pointing up for Brant Brown. For whatever you might have thought about the spring training numbers, the philosophy and the approach is showing up in these games that count. Through 6 games, the Cardinals haven't gotten, there's been no game where they were out of it, right? They won 4 of them, and the other 2, they lose it in extras. But they do it in a fashion that still showed some resilience. I mean, they had a 3-run inning in the 10th inning yesterday. They lost the game. But they've been really battling. You take a turn through the starting rotation, +1, where Sonny Gray goes the second time. His ERA doesn't look good, right? He had 5 innings, 2 runs the first time out. Today he ends up giving up 5 runs because of the grand slam, the last pitch he throws. But if that looks, I mean, if he goes out after 6 innings today, we're talking about Sonny Gray in his 11 innings allowing just 2 runs and back on that Cy Young pace, right? Instead, yeah, he's going to have some digging to do to get out of the hole that he's built for that ERA. But all in all, first turn through the rotation plus Sonny's start today, there's a lot to be encouraged by. I'm not saying it's going to look like that every time through, and there are going to be some moments where you'd like to see more of these guys get through 6 rather than 5. But there's also been some reasons that happened, like the rain delay for Palante. He probably could have gone deeper than 5 innings in his start. And even your 6th starter that you're going to get a look at, Steven Matz, he went 4 innings of scoreless baseball. So he'll be available for a pretty long relief stint at some point over the weekend, I'm sure, if the Cardinals want to continue to keep him stretched out for the part of the season where he's supposed to get into the rotation later on this month. I think they said April 16th will be the target for that. That's a Wednesday afternoon game. So I don't know if that's specifically the game that he would start, but we'll kind of see as time goes along what the Cardinals are able to do, working to figure that out and working to get that schedule on a path that he'll be ready to go. There's just a lot to really like. I mean, there's a sense that like 26 men on this team are putting this roster together, and they comprise this roster in a way that makes a lot of sense. The roles kind of come into fruition. Guys filling out their spots capably. We'll see, man. It's early, but there's plenty to like right now about what the Cardinals are doing. Not going to have a full down on the farm segment just yet. By the way, keep an eye out. If anybody has, we've had farming type businesses, we've had egg businesses where you're selling eggs at your farm. We've had lots of different businesses that have supported the down on the farm vibe in past years. For right now, it's wide open. If anybody would like to jump on board and do something fun with that segment or any other segment, if you've got a business and you're like, I don't need us to do the podcast, sponsorship a couple days out of the month or whatever. I want to do something every day that's just a little bit, just a little bite, little segment for my business, and we can form it just the way that we did with Down on the Farm. That's kind of the vibe that we're going for with B-Schaeff Daily this summer, making it worth my while to do it. Partnering up with businesses can go a long way toward that, and we're going to do it regardless. But I really am at a point in the career here where I think we have some opportunities to do some fun things with Cardinals fans and businesses that you Cardinals fans may have out there. So always reach out to me at b-schaefer12. I'm wide open on Twitter. The DMs have always been open. And you can hit me up. You can email me, b-schaefer12@outlook.com. I'm pretty much an open book. I won't put my phone number out there, but I hate to think that people could probably find it if they needed to. But nevertheless, that's going on. The reason I bring up Down on the Farm in the first place, because, people would probably have started to ask, even in the offseason, people were like, are we doing Down on the Farm again? But I did want to just make a note. Memphis Redbirds 15-3. They took care of the Bisons today. The Buffalo Bisons. I didn't know that offhand. Who was the Bisons? It's Buffalo. Improving to 3-2 on the season. I just like to keep an eye on some of the pitchers down there in AAA, because at a certain point, we're going to be looking and seeing what these pitching prospects look like, right? And whether or not this is going to be a group that gets added to at some point throughout the season, we'll wait and see. The only start so far from Quinn Matthews was a 4-inning, 2-run effort, walked 3 and struck out 1. His time will come. I'm not worried about that, Cardinals fans. But today it was Sem Robertsa, 3 innings, gave up 3 runs, 3 walks, 4 Ks, and the bullpen ends up doing a nice job. Cornwell, Granillo, O'Brien, Swanson, and Ludus all throwing scoreless appearances to get Memphis off the sheet 15-3 on Wednesday against the Buffalo Bisons. So that's what's going on down on the farm. No graphic today, but yeah, hit me up. If there's any business interest with B-Schaeff Daily, let's have a year. Let's have a summer, everybody. Appreciate you guys, as always, for listening, for tuning in, for making B-Schaeff Daily a part of your daily listening experience, as well as the Sports Hub STL shows. I know I'm doing a lot of shows right now, but if you love Cardinals content, I mean, I really appreciate you for listening and watching, and those who comment on the live shows with Sports Hub. Go back if you haven't. If you're looking for something on Thursday to listen to after this one, Randy Carricker and me did an absolutely fun post-game show on Sports Hub STL for Cards Hub post-game the other day. Well, I guess not the other day. It was earlier today on Wednesday. But we had a ton of great questions and comments, and we ended up on a conversation that I think we're going to maybe double back to on Thursday's live show for Sports Hub, Cards Hub 365. Talk about the extensions going on across Major League Baseball, the young players getting contracts, and maybe where the Cardinals might fit into that. If that's a topic you'd like me to explore further on B-Schaeff Daily, maybe that's the direction I go for Thursday, since it'll be a Cardinal off day. So I'll kind of give my long-form thoughts on that. But we talked a little bit about that today on Card Sub, so make sure you guys are subscribed to Sports Hub STL as well as B-Schaeff Daily. Thank you guys, though, so much. Check out everything in the links below to the video description where you can join the membership. You can check out the Discord, which is free. Anything you need is going to be down there. So appreciate you guys for being on board, and we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace!